Good evening, I'm Pinky Webb. Tonight we ask the questions, we tackle the issues, we clarify matters, and we get on point. A renewed push for charter change. Members of the National Unity Party, NUP, have filed a measure seeking to amend the 1987 Constitution through a constitutional convention or a CONCON. The bill's authors cite what they call ambiguities, procedural lapses, and outdated provisions that have allegedly weakened institutional accountability. With multiple failed attempts at charter change in the past, will this latest proposal gain traction? Let's get on point with NUP Chairperson, House Deputy Speaker Ronaldo Puno. Congressman Puno, good to see you again.
Thank you.
Maraming salamat po sa inyong oras. Let's start with the Chacha. You filed a House Bill 5870 that actually seeks to amend the 1987 Constitution via Constitutional Convention, as mentioned a while ago, to amend a constitution that has actually been in place for, I would say, almost 4 decades.
38 years. Yeah.
Okay, 38 years to be exact. Why now? Why are you pushing this now?
Well, it's not like this is the first time there's an attempt to amend it. No? I mean, there have been many. Practically every president has been involved in efforts to amend one or a number of provisions.
Except Pinoy's.
Except President Aquino. But I think now the situation is different. I think more than before, the public is more aware of the importance of having a good government. No? The extent to which the problems are being investigated now are really waking up the people to wow, what damage has been done really. No? And okay, one aspect of the problem will be the ethics and the morality of the officials involved. But sometimes there's also a matter of the system being defective. You know, if you have a bad corporation and it loses money, you don't just fire the people. Sometimes you reorganize the corporation. And I think it's similar to that we have to look at. You know? But even from the very beginning, there has always been doubt about whether or not we should be unicameral or bicameral. I think that issue has never been addressed squarely. In the 1987 Constitution, all the drafts presumed a unicameral Congress. And then in the last minute, by one vote, the bicameral Congress came in. So, and since then, you know, because of the way the procedure for amendments has been described, nothing has happened because there's always a conflict between the lower and the upper house. No? And then when you go to the other versions of amending the Constitution, for example, a people's initiative, that has been attempted several times, but every single time it has been struck down by the Supreme Court because it was said to not comply with things implied or stated specifically in the Constitution. So that's why nothing has happened. But I think that now we are more hopeful that people will be more open to this thing. Because, number one, in the past elections, we have seen that the citizenry, the youth, have become very active, no? And they are very much participating in the political debates that we have. Number two, there's a very high level of emotion in our population today as they observe what's going on in government. That plus, I think, we are beginning to really realize that there are problems in the Constitution, no? I mean, that need to be addressed. Conflicts in word, you know, just the word forthwith, for example, has been described so many times.
I had a feeling you were going to say that. Okay.
Well, because it is one of the things that precipitated this.
I'll have to cut you because there are so many things that you mentioned that I actually wanted to jump in.
Sure.
You were talking about the people, in a nutshell, are very much more aware of what is going on, definitely because of the corruption that has happened. And you're talking about ethics and morality, a system that is probably defective. The question really is, Congressman, is it the Constitution, or is it the people, or is it the politicians running the country? Which is the problem, or could it be both?
I think it's both. No, I think it's both. Let's go to the matter of the flood control. No, what is the real problem that people are looking at here? It's the bicameral committee. Okay, what is the bicameral committee? It's the committee that reconciles the versions of the budget from the House of Representatives and the Senate.
Right.
But what has been happening is when it gets to the bicameral committee, new matters are brought in. So it's not just a reconciliation, it's actually a redo.
But isn't the problem also because the past Congress started these small committee groups that actually almost immediately inserted and added more after the BICAM, sir? Is it really the BICAM that's the problem?
No, the small groups that you mentioned were, first of all, they're not standard. You know? They are adopted by different groups in Congress from time to time. There's nothing on paper.
There's nothing
that requires a small committee, but the BICAM is.
Yeah.
You know, the bicameral committee is a part of the regular Congress procedure. So we'll go there because whether you like it or not, you have to do a BICAM conference. No? And as I said, the problem there may be like in the Constitution. If you're going to say that the BICAM committee merely reconciles the two versions of the budget, there really should be no new matters introduced. But as I said, you know, as we have seen from the flood control issues, those were all new matters introduced.
But isn't it the fault of the people who introduced it and not the BICAM itself, sir?
No, it's the system.
It's hard to blame the BICAM when it's actually the people that were heading the bicameral conference committee that seem, or allegedly, are the problem.
No, the BICAM is there to address the difference in the two
between
versions.
the House and the Senate version.
I think there
the
should
House
be
gap
more,
and the Senate gap.
Yes,
Okay.
I think there should be more detail on how that reconciliation happens. No, and what is the minimum requirement of either from the Senate or the House? No, is the Senate expected to make a completely different budget on its own, or is the version of the House of Representatives the first draft, which the Senate should review? No? So those things, they're not in the rules of either house. There's no manual that tells you how to do this. So it depends on what the people there want to do. And if there is no clear prescription of how it must be handled, you know, obviously, you won't always get the correct answer or the correct path. No?
Right.
And in this particular case, I think we blew it. No?
Yeah. And it depends on what the people want to do, as you mentioned a while ago. And they did what they wanted to do in the previous budget, sir.
Yes,
and then
yes,
I
that's
go
the
back to
thing.
then that's the fault of the people, not the bicameral conference or even the rules. Because if it's just really the rules, sir, for example, the small groups that were formed very recently. Di ba tinanggal na po yan sa budget ngayon? Kasi sabi ni Congressman Toby Tiangco, let's take that out. The small groups that were done in the previous Congress, during the 19th Congress. And then the majority said, okay, we're not going to do that anymore because parang lumalabas, meron ding, it's a powerful small committee. Apparently, it's not that small after all.
But did you ask them what actual issuance they enacted in order to remove the small committees? Nothing. Because there is no basis for the small committee.
Right.
Okay? It's purely voluntary on their part. They just decide to do it, and it's a matter of, you know, they wanted to do it, so they did it. But there is no basis.
So it's up to who? The leader?
I'm
the
sorry?
majority. It's up to the majority or the leader of the House.
Yes, but, you know, in every...
Or the leader of the Senate.
In every committee, there's always the presence of the minority. Now, you know, if you look at Congress now, there's more minority congressmen talking because it is required, no, that the minority be allowed to say something on every point.
Okay. All right.
So I think that it's the whole Congress, but I think it's also a question of, you know, if you accept the process of the BICAM, that there is a smaller group that will review the work of the two bigger groups, you know, and then they will be allowed to change it and introduce new things. I think that's wrong. So I think that there should be something more clear about how this process should go.
So to answer the question when I ask you, is it the process or is it the people running the show?
As we said, it's both. No?
Both, okay.
It's both, absolutely.
Would you say that it's more the fault of the politicians or do you think it's more the fault of the process? I mean, something has to be the bigger problem here.
The point of having a constitution that defines a Congress, no, is to ensure that personal objectives, personal intentions will not override the collective need, no, the collective beliefs. I think the problem with what we have here is that the system promotes individuality. You know, it makes it beneficial for people to stand alone. We don't have a real party system, so people jump from one party to another. So it's really the agenda of anybody is really based on what his personal preferences
Interests are.
No? Now, when you do it that way, you diminish the importance of group objectives and start to allow too many personal objectives to come in. It's really the guy with the biggest arm that's going to be able to push everybody, or
It's the guy with the
most
biggest
creative
pocket.
person who is corrupt and will buy everyone, So I think the Constitution, is probably the best place to put safeguards against those, to ensure that collective benefits are are going to be addressed in the budget process.
When you talk about political parties, that's been talked about over and over again in the past, that turncoatism, yung mga politiko po ay palipat-lipat na lang ng partido. That's why they want to strengthen also. There's a lot of talk about strengthening the political party, especially, definitely here in the country. So I want to go back to this. So it was introduced since, I think, 1997. During the time of ERAP. And then there was Pirma under GMA. You were DILG secretary during the time of ERAP, during the time of GMA also. And then it took a break, I believe, during the Pinoy administration. There was also a time that they tried to revive this via federalism during the Duterte administration. And then now, during the Marcos regime. Again, do you think? Do you think it's going to be more palatable to the people now amidst this whole controversy on the flood control scandal and the corruption that we are seeing?
When we talk about these constitutional reforms, we try to focus on the individual versus collective, the personal versus society, right? The Constitution should protect the collective will, okay? So we're thinking that because almost everybody has become a casualty of the flood control controversies. In my own district, we're seeing many people really disadvantaged by this thing. So I think people feel personally the effects of these very selfish moves by some politicians. And I think people are just wondering, so what can we do next? The conversations I always get into now about all of these investigations is, they always ask me, where's it going to go? Saan matatapos ito? I said, well, one place it will end is some people are going to jail, because cases are going to be filed, and whether or not it's going to solve the problem, it's at least going to address it. But then it cannot end there. I mean, we had the same problem with the Napoles series of incidents before. So there were cases filed, people went to jail, people got exonerated, and who stays in jail now? Napoles, Anybody else? Not aware, Maybe there are some others that went to jail for a while, but they were the lower
people. Some of the staff, yeah. Okay.
So we didn't learn from that one. Maybe we can learn from this one.
And how is changing the Constitution, how will that allow us to learn from the past experience of corruption via the pork barrel scam?
Again, by defining more clearly and with better detail the relationship between the two chambers of Congress, if you're going to retain a two-chamber Congress.
What do you prefer? Do you prefer two chambers or uni?
To be honest with you, my bias is for a bicameral legislature. Probably the Western tradition that we are exposed to. I think that when it is done properly, it's very effective. And it actually defines two types of interest, the parochial, district, local interest versus the national interest. So the senators are supposed to represent national interest, and the local is supposed to push for the local interest. So I think it's a good balance.
What happened? So what's the problem now?
Well, the manifestation of all of this is the budget formulation, correct? But if you look at the budget, it really doesn't give equal consideration to the local versus the national. Okay? And how do you do that?
How do you mean by that? What do you mean by that?
Well, for example, a flood control program, you cannot solve all the flood control issues in the country, of course. So the Senate will say, let's solve all these flood control issues. But it's impossible. So you now have to select among the locals, no? Which flood control problems are we going to solve first? So the strongest congressman is the one that's going to get his flood control problem solved. And that's assuming everybody's honest, okay? So, but the thing here is, I think the system of how to define, no, those concerns has to be more clearly stated. And it's going to be evidenced in the budget formulation, okay? There have been many variations in budgets, no? So for example, before there was a provincial development assistance program, so and so people, a district would be told, okay, this is how much money we're going to give your district, and then you figure out what you're going to do with it, and then the Senate and of course the macro thinkers in Congress will now look at the bigger picture, the economy, the general state of infrastructure in the country, and so on. So, but again, there's no clear path to how to do this. We had the development budget management system, which was, went back to Secretary Jimmy Laya during martial law. Okay, that's when that system was started. It's a very good budget system. But again, you have to apply the procedures that are there to the realities that you face, no?
And the reality is what, Congressman? That people like you in Congress still want a piece of the pie, a piece of the money to be able to put money in your respective districts. Would that be correct?
In the systems before, there was a specific way. No? If you belong to this district, your population is like this, your land area is like this, all right, this is the national expenditure program, then you could be entitled to this much money because that is your portion. No? And then they would define what is the national, which is national debt and all of that. The national programs approved by the NEDA, things like that. So it's clear, no? It's very clear what type of resources you have to address the needs in your district.
Congressman, I need to go on a break. Just didn't want to let go of this train of thought of mine. Why is it important that we discuss what Congress, the Senate and the congressmen can get or need to get out of the budget that is enacted every year? When in fact, the job really of the congressmen and the senators is to enact laws. Kailangan ho ba talaga na... Kasi I think even if you change the system, you're still going to try to get as much as you can because you actually represent a particular district at gusto nyo po masabi na gumanda ang distrito, nagpatayo ng ganito dahil si congressman ay nandito.
Well, see for example, what I was referring to about a district having a clear idea of what you're entitled to. There's one town that got 3 billion, a small town. Okay, now you're seeing districts that have 10 billion, 15 billion. This is unheard of. And being a congressman myself, I don't know where you put those projects. Okay, because there's a definition, what's a local project, what's a national project, and so on and so forth, no? You fix the Marcos Highway, that's a national project. You fix the local road, that's a local...
That becomes a local project.
So I think...
There's confusion there. That is at least correct. Pag national yan eh. National gumagawa niyan. And then pag medyo doon sa mga secondary, local, pwedeng local yon or pwede ring national project.
That's right, no? But how fair is it that small towns are going to have 15 billion, 10 billion, when others are going to have really basically nothing, no? And how does that impact national projects? So what is this making clear, no? It's making clear the fact that there are no standards. There are no limitations. I think limits should be put in there, no? Since we know what the nature of our representation in Congress is. For example, I represent the 1st District of Antipolo. I don't represent the province of Rizal. So I'm not expected to deal with the requirements of the province of Rizal. The other congressmen will do that for the national concerns, and then the local officials for the local concerns. Now, going back to the power of the purse, no? Of course, we are there to enact laws. But the basic thing that Congress is expected to do is define the budget because it has the power of the purse. Nobody else has it. Okay, so in the Constitution, I think we should define exactly what this means. No, the power of the purse, yes, but once you put it to an agency, the agency head can change it. Put it somewhere else. Is that consistent with the basis of power of the purse? So things like that, and I think that had a very big role in many things that have happened. Okay, for example, just the release of unprogrammed funds.
UA.
All
Yeah,
right.
UA.
You know, in Congress, what happens is they present a bunch of projects that really have no immediate source of funds.
No funding yet.
So they'll put it as unprogrammed or for later release. And how is that released? Well, when the government collects more income, or when there are savings for projects that should have been implemented but weren't. Okay? When do you know that you have savings and that you have more collections? Is it in January or more likely in October? I think it's more likely in October, right? Because then you will see what you have already done and what resources you have left, and so on and so forth.
Okay.
So how is it that for later release projects in the year 2025 were released in the first half of the year?
Or are for later release projects being used as a political tool? But
Well, that
sorry.
too, you know. But you see, when we talk about the flood control things, no, there were several amounts talked about for the Senate, for the executive, and for Congress. But these were supposed to be unprogrammed or for later release. The premise of which should be savings or
Hindi
increased
nagamit na.
collections, no?
Okay, yeah.
So how were they released in the earlier part of the year? Okay, so
Congressman, sorry, I just need to take a very short break. We'll continue our discussion with House Deputy Speaker Ronaldo Puno when we return. Stay tuned. This is On Point. Welcome back. Still with us, House Deputy Speaker Ronaldo Puno. We have still a lot to discuss, but if this were to proceed, what amendments do you want to see? Because when Chacha is talked about a change in the Constitution, it's most often thought that you guys really just want to extend your terms.
Well, I think that is something that that people thought was being obvious, no, in the ones that were wanting charter changes before. But I think in the current dispensation, that's probably not what it is. No, I mean, I think people are starting to feel, no, the gravity of the problems. Okay, what do we think are the priority ones? Number one, territory. We are engaged in a battle of wills in the West Philippine Sea. The West Philippine Sea is not mentioned in our Constitution. In fact, there is no such terminology as West Philippine Sea. Okay, that has just been, recently introduced. I think, if we're
By
going
the Pinoy
to
administration again.
if we're going to go to a conflict over our rights, no, over the West Philippine Sea, which we are fighting for now, I think we have to at least put it in the Constitution, because the Constitution describes and defines what is our area. If it's not included in the definition of the Constitution, what right do we have to claim it? Right? Okay. Then other things, no? Like the barangays don't have a term of office. A law was passed where now their term has been changed to 4 years. So now there's no way that elections are going to be simultaneous. Well, you may say that, well, it should not be simultaneous. But if you're running in a barangay and the mayor is not running for election, he will probably win all the barangay elections in his town, because he has the power of of municipality or the city hall. So is that fair? I don't think so. No, we haven't had an election in the past 3 or 4 administrations for barangays that was undertaken on the date it's supposed to be. It's always changed.
Postponed.
Yes, postponed, changed, and as a result, the terms of the office of barangay officials are necessarily changed. No.
Okay.
Now, it's the people that vote for the barangay officials.
Okay.
What right do we have as legislators to change the term of office of people they elected? Okay, so there. So I think that's the second important one. I'm not too keen on economic provisions because, well, again, I'm not the expert on that. But on political things, I think because I've seen this more closely in the years that I've been in government, it's actually more obvious to me, no? The matter of procedures, limitations, and very clear standards, for example, on the budget process, not just in Congress, even in local governments, no? Even in the barangay. You'll be surprised that some barangays, our barangays, for example, in Antipolo, they're as big as regular towns, okay? But their terms are, are flip-flopping. No? I mean, it's 3 years now, it'll be 4 years next time. That, so they don't know how long they're going to be there. So you make a plan for your barangay, but you don't know how long you're going to be around to do it, right? Then the question of, is 3 years really the ideal number of years for a congressman to be there?
Let's talk about that.
Is 6 years the ideal for the senator, no?
Is 6 years also ideal for a president or vice
Also,
president?
that too, yeah. So I think those have to be discussed. I don't have the answers off the top of my head.
But that will be touched.
Of course.
Let's just not say we're not going to change it. It will. There's a big possibility it will be changed. Okay. So those are the things. What about forthwith? You mentioned it a while ago. Is that even necessary to specify it in the Constitution?
No. Forthwith became important because of the whole process of impeachment. Okay. The question is, okay, when somebody is impeached, what do you do? Well, the Constitution implied with forthwith that right away do it, no? But then they, interpreted it in many ways to result in a 6-month delay, a Supreme Court case, and the case still, pending.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't think that's the intention of the Constitution because impeachment is an extreme solution to an extreme problem,
So this has to be also enumerated, identified, described, so that we understand it better, so we don't have this argument what forthwith actually means between the House and the Senate.
Pinky, every PI, People's Initiative, has gone to the Supreme Court, every single one. And every single one has been struck down. Not because of anything you see in the Constitution, but because of what the justices think are required. Okay? So, instead of that being the basis, why don't you just put it clearly in the Constitution? Okay. What are the requirements?
That's why there are ambiguities.
Correct.
Okay, very clear.
Just
Just on the last point, Congressman, we have 1 minute left. What about the anti-dynasty bill that was passed by some members of Congress? If you talk about the 1987 Constitution, you talk about ambiguities, procedural lapses, and outdated provisions. What about provisions that actually say that political dynasties are supposed to be banned? What we need is an enabling law. Why can't Congress, both houses at that, already file and pass into law the anti-dynasty bill?
Well, of course they could. No, they could. No. But because it's a law, it can be changed in the next congressional session. You want something that's permanent, no? But, with respect to dynasty, I think the essence of the argument on dynasty is fairness, okay? And openness of the democracy, in our institutions, no? People are against it because dynasty implies perpetuation in office because of privilege. Right? Because I'm mayor, I have more money, my son will become the next mayor. And people don't like that because it speaks of a manipulative political system. In that sense, I think we really have to address it. No? How do we prevent powerful people from manipulating the electoral process, so that they will perpetuate themselves in office? I think that is the basic objective. Yeah.
Okay.
Everybody agrees to that. Everybody agrees to that. But when people start talking and focusing just on the dynasty, it's very difficult to. One guy's definition will not be the same as the other.
So you're open to this, but it has to be clearly defined.
Yes, I'm open to it, and I would actually support it. No, if it results in removing the privilege, and the
advantage.
The unearned advantages of people in power.
Unearned.
Yeah.
Yeah, but somebody can say, I really earned this. But that's what they always say. Sorry, last na lang to. They always say, nasa tao naman talaga yung nasa botante lang naman talaga. I think what we fail to realize here is that it's become a family business, Congressman, to many politicians. Let me just cite this one last report from the PCIJ. Unfortunately, I can't find. Here it is. Data showed that 216, this was in May of 2025, 216 out of 253 district representatives belong to political families. That's, 90%, 80%. Of this figure, 142 are re-electionists and 67 have relatives who seek to replace their kin in their posts. That's how bad it's
Yeah.
been. Unfortunately, though, we've run out of time. I'm so sorry about that. Congressman, I hope to speak to you again. We will see what happens if this House bill will actually see the light of day this time around under the Marcos administration and a possible counterpart in the Senate. House Deputy Speaker Ronaldo Puno, sir, pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. That's On Point. Join us again tomorrow, 7:30 p.m. here on BNC, the Billionario News Channel. I'm Pinky Webb. Thank you for watching.